Now, I want to start by welcoming everybody to Revolution Books for what I anticipate being an exciting and important program, marking the release of Dorothy Roberts' new book, Torn Apart, which you can get here, and you can probably get signed by Dorothy here. So check it out, grab the book up, and read it. And when I say everybody, I mean both our in-house audience here, which I can see directly, and the online audience, which can see us, but we can't see them. But I'm sure that they look, you know, just as good as y'all do. Okay? We're excited to be co-sponsoring this event with Rise Magazine, a magazine and a grouping that was founded by parents impacted by the family policing system. And if you don't know what that is, right at this moment, don't worry, because it will be laid out before you. Now, Revolution Books is the place for an event like this. It's the intellectual, political, and cultural center for a movement for an actual revolution. Look around the bookstore, the books about the world, and books for a new world. At the heart of Revolution Books is the work of Bob Avakian, the architect of a new framework for human emancipation, and the author, as I said, of the new communism. Avakian is also the leader of a movement for an actual revolution, and someone that everybody who yearns to see a better way of life for people brought into being in this world needs to check out. And again, here is where you can check out Bob Avakian. Now, in addition to the variety of books you'll see on the shelves here, this is also where you come for vital and engaging programs. Programs featuring authors, you know, speaking on and revealing to us new books, both fiction and nonfiction, that help bring out various aspects of the world. Programs featuring activists, like those who were here last month and probably again this month, fighting to defend abortion rights. Families whose loved ones were murdered by the police and who are speaking on that. We've had events like that. We have cultural events. We have film showings. And then we have events like this one here, which is both an author event and groups together people who are fighting the injustices that this capitalist imperialist system brings down on people. Now, I want to say just a little bit about Dorothy's book. And let me just start by, look, I'm not somebody who was unaware of child welfare and how it's really a wolf in sheep's clothing. You know, not a benevolent institution that helps families, but an institution that steals families' children. That's what this comes down to. But when I read this book, it was like, wow, both heart-wrenching and eye-opening. And we're going to get a taste of that here today. What they do to families amounts, in some cases, to kidnapping. Families asked to drop their kids off in child care while they have a meeting with a caseworker and come back to find out their kids are gone, having been taken by the state, put into this agency. Families who, for little reason or no reason at all, find their children taken from them. And we're often talking about mothers who are raising families on their own here. And really, this does not happen because we've got some misguided bureaucrats who are usurping the reins of power in these agencies. It happens because of the foundational logic, and I'm quoting here from Dorothy, the foundational logic of these agencies, which is to threaten marginalized people with their children being taken from them unless they toe a line and overcome insurmountable obstacles. And in many cases, even if they do that, their children are still stolen from them. Dorothy has spoken here at Revolution Books before, and we're very happy to welcome her back. Let me just note two other insights that Dorothy brings to bear in this book. One is linking this to broader developments in U.S. society, both historical and current day, searching out the roots of family policing in what happened to enslaved people dragged to these countries in slave chains, and to the indigenous people who a genocide was carried out against. And she traces it up to today, where, I mean, there was signs put up around Harlem when the Trump administration was separating families at the border, bringing out, they steal children from their families in Harlem too. And it was very much to the point. And Dorothy concludes all this, and she's going to get more into this, that this is an institution that cannot be fixed through reforms, but must be dismantled. She's going to read from the book, but I'm going to turn it over right now to Rise, and they're going to introduce Dorothy and take the program away from here. So Halima and Jeanette.
Jeanette and Bianca.
Oh, Bianca?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. See, y'all threw me off by not being up here by not being on the panel.
I'm sorry.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
So
Thank you.
you guys all for being here
Excellent.
today.
Thank you.
We did want to say that we are recording this event, so if anyone does not want to be on camera, please just raise your hand and we will make sure that we do not add you, or we kind of like override you a little bit while we're recording the event. But again, my name is Jeanette Vega. I am Rise's co-executive director for leadership and policy. It is an honor to have you all here today. This is me and Bianca's first live event as co-executive directors. So we would like to thank all of you who are here in person, all of our Facebook allies, friends, and partners for joining us also. And again, we want to make sure we get to conversation and programs, so I'm going to let Bianca give you a little overview of who Rise is.
Thank you, Jeanette. And good afternoon, everyone. So excited to see your faces. As Jeanette said, this is our first live event, and we couldn't think of a better way by having Dorothy with us today to talk about her incredible book and also to share her parents' experiences. So if you don't know us, welcome, and I'll just share a little bit about Rise. For over 16 years, Rise has been sharing the stories, voices, and solutions of parents who have been impacted by the family policing system. We started from the presence that families, parents who have been harmed historically and generationally get a right to reclaim their truth and to share their narrative. And for over 16 years, parents have been shaping the system, have been calling for changes within their community, and have been really thinking about what does it mean to support families so that they never have to interact with the family policing system. So our work is really centered around providing families with supports, resources, information, care, and healing, so that we don't have to talk about the harms that you'll hear about today. So I'm so excited for Halima and Nashia to share more about our work. You'll learn about our organizing work right now that's really centered on childcare, because we know when folks don't have those resources, then they end up being harmed by the system. And you'll also hear about our peer network, where we're really thinking about how families who have navigated the system can support each other. And you'll hear about our work in general, about how we build up parent leadership and how we really center parents' experiences. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so excited for this conversation, and I'll pass it to the panelists.
Yes, thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you. Now, what's the best way for me to get around here? Can I fit through here? Thank you. Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much, Carl Dix, for that introduction. And thank you, Jeanette Vega and Bianca, where did Bianca go? Bianca Shaw, as well for the introduction. I'm just so thrilled to be here. I can't think of a more exciting combination than Revolution Books and Rise Magazine. And I just couldn't be more thrilled. And I'm so grateful for you all coming together to talk about these issues and what the work that we need to do to abolish this system. So I'm not going to say anything more before I get to the reading because I thought that Carl did such a fantastic job of summarizing my points in the book. And I'm going to start with a reading from the beginning of the book that lays out some more of the basic information about the family policing system. And then later, I believe I will have a moment to read one of the stories about a family that was impacted, really terrorized by this system. Okay. Every year, government agents invade the homes of hundreds of thousands of families in poor and low-income communities without a warrant or any other kind of judicial authorization in the name of protecting children who live there. In 2018 alone, 3.5 million children were involved in an investigation by Child Protective Services. Black families are disproportionately subjected to state intrusion, and they're actually targeted for state intrusion. Caseworkers and police officers inspect the premises for what, in their opinion, constitutes a risk to children. Based on child neglect laws, the investigators interpret conditions of poverty, lack of food, insecure housing, inadequate medical care as evidence of parental unfitness. They also perceive the homes in Black communities as more hazardous for children, even when the alleged parental infraction, like allowing a toddler to momentarily stray away or having alcohol in the house, happens in white affluent homes too. The parents under investigation rarely know their legal rights and aren't informed of them. Asserting their rights is usually futile or may garner a violent reprimand. You're told if you don't comply, you may never see your children again. So there is a warning, if anything, not about your rights, but not to assert your rights. Caseworkers subject family members to humiliating questioning. They interrogate children separately and pressure them to make statements against their relatives. During these interrogations, caseworkers inspect children for evidence, sometimes strip searching them. Most Black children in America, more than half of Black children in America will undergo a CPS investigation at some point in their childhoods. This surveillance constitutes the stop and frisk of Black families that falls off the radar of public protest. Other than some people, like the people in Rise, who are protesting, and others as well, we'll learn more about. But most of the public doesn't rise up against this kind of violent treatment of families. Most allegations prompting a child welfare investigation are for neglect. The vast majority of families subjected to investigation have low income or are living in poverty and could use help meeting their material needs. But the government agents who investigate them don't offer the resources struggling families need. Instead, they brandish a terrifying weapon against them, the threat of taking their children away. Every year, state child protection agencies make good on their threat and remove about 500,000 children from their homes. Officially, these agencies seize or steal 250,000 children every year. And it's estimated that they take another 250,000 children through informal coerced arrangements, euphemistically known as safety plans, that never make it into official statistics. More than 1 in 10 Black children in America will be forcibly separated from their parents and placed in foster care by the time they reach age 18. And this is true for indigenous children in America as well. Child welfare authorities wield these powers to supervise, reassemble, and destroy families with stunningly little judicial constraint or public scrutiny. Such extreme state intrusion in homes violates well-established principles of U.S. constitutional law that are supposed to protect us from tyrannical government rule. Such traumatic assaults on people's most cherished relationships, targeted against vulnerable populations, constitutes torture under international declarations. Such a powerful mechanism for reinforcing racial capitalism, the U.S. system of wealth accumulation grounded in racist hierarchy and ideology, parallels the function of police and prisons. Recent foster care rates for U.S. children at 576 per 1,000 are about the same as incarceration rates for U.S. adults at 582 per 100,000. The child welfare system has unparalleled powers to terrorize entire communities, shape national policy, and reinforce our unequal social order. Yet most Americans have never thought of this form of state violence imposed on oppressed communities as a political injustice. To the contrary, they've been led to believe that the government is saving these communities' children. The state violence inflicted in the name of child protection is a benevolent terror. We should stop calling this brutal regime by its benevolent titles: child welfare system, child protective services, foster care. The mission of CPS agencies is not to care for children or to protect their welfare. Rather, they respond inadequately and inhumanely to the effects of our society's abysmal failure to care enough about children's welfare. Far from promoting the well-being of children, the state weaponizes children as a way to threaten families, to scapegoat parents for societal harms to their children, and to buttress the racist, patriarchal, and capitalist status quo. Policing is the word that captures best what the system does to America's most disenfranchised families. It subjects them to surveillance, coercion, and punishment. It is a family policing system. The abolitionist mission to liberate Black people from captivity must include freeing family caregivers from state supervision and children from foster care. Ultimately, movements to dismantle different parts of the carceral state are working toward the same world, a world where all children are safe and cared for without the need for police, prisons, and family separation. A more expansive understanding of policing and abolition that contests the state's benevolent terror is essential to collectively building a new society that supports rather than destroys families and communities. This book is dedicated to that abolitionist vision. Thank you. Oh. Oh, yeah, we can move down now a bit. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, we can spread out. Is that good? Is that good? Okay.
We need it for that.
And because it's hard to see. We have an obstruction in this store where you can't be seen that well.
Oh.
Get as far this way as possible.
So should we move,
Yeah,
more of
we
us
can
move
move
this?
even more.
But be
Yeah.
careful.
No, I'm not gonna
Yeah,
go
don't
over
fall
there.
off.
Well, I've seen it happen before. I have literally seen that happen. Not to me, but. Should we keep our mics Are lavalier mics on? Or
Yeah.
should, yes? Okay.
Yeah. Good to go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Halima Washington, and I am the community coordinator with Rise Magazine, and I am so glad to be here with you all today. Thank you, Dorothy, for reading that excerpt from Torn Apart. Thank you, Dorothy, for reading that excerpt from Torn Apart. It was very important and necessary for this group of folks here to hear that part of the book. And know that the family policing system should be called exactly what it is, the family policing system. There's nothing about child welfare that happens in the family policing system, and it's important for folks to know that. I'm going to pass the mic over to Nashia so that she can introduce herself. Yes.
Hello, my name is Nashia Bettis. I am a parent organizer with Rise. Thank you, Halima. And yes, a lot of what Dorothy just read resonates exactly with the work that we're doing and families that we surround ourselves with. I myself am an impacted parent, so I understood exactly. What Dorothy just read to you guys. Thank you for being here.
So I guess we're doing a Q&A at this point.
Okay.
No? We're doing an open conversation. So I guess we can start the conversation with, I don't know.
You know what? Oh, there are questions, but I would really like for you two to talk about the work you're doing at Rise, because let me tell, yes, because, you know, my book lays it out, but they're doing it. They're doing it. And I think all of you would want to hear the work that's going on at Rise, which is so important and is so inspiring to me. And let me also say, I quote, Rise is quoted all through Torn Apart, So, including Imani Worthy, who couldn't be here, but that's what I want to hear now, so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, me and Nashia about to take it away. Y'all
Yeah,
ready?
go on.
Okay. All right. Okay. So at Rise, what we have been doing is we did a participatory action research project where we wanted to find out what resources were available to families outside of what the family policing system had to offer folks. And what we found was that the family policing system is unavoidable. Families have to interface with that system in everything that they do, whether they're going to the doctor, whether they're taking their children to school, whether they're receiving public benefits like HRA, or whatever they're or if they even have an open ACS case. They might be under investigation right now for something as minor as their kid woke up late for school. And the kid didn't make it to school, and so now the parent is responsible for educational neglect because the kid didn't want to get up for school and get out the house and get to school. Those are some of the things that we found out in our research. We did a series of community conversations where we went into the community. Well, first off, we did our research project during the pandemic. Totally virtually. And before we even started our work, we collaborated with an organization called Take Root Justice, where we learned about research and the importance of,
It's not working.
well, y'all can hear me, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, so we learned about research and the importance of centering the impacted people that are impacted in the community and uplifting their voices in the work. And so we went to parents who are impacted by the family policing system. We asked families that are involved in foster care agencies and around the community what their experiences were when they were looking for resources outside of whatever is available through ACS, because ACS has a bunch of resources, but you can only get access to those resources resources if you have a case. And so that's not fair. That doesn't make any sense at all for a person to have to be under investigation and have to deal with the trauma of surveillance and investigations in order to receive services that should just be given to people freely. And so the other thing that we did was we trained with the Breathe Collective, which is an organization that does restorative justice. So they teach about like what restorative justice is it teaches us how to see the humanity in each other. Again, it restores our ability to see each other's humanity again, and we do that through doing circles and having talking pieces. So we have a talking piece that we pass around in a circle, and it gives everybody an opportunity to not only speak, but to also be heard in a space where oftentimes in marginalized communities, we don't get a chance to speak or even be heard. And so it was important for us to center and uplift voices in that way, and not only center the voices, but also center the folks that needed to hear what was being said too. Because oftentimes we're in a funnel when we're in crisis, and it's just like we only hear the story as it relates to us, but it doesn't relate necessarily to other people. And so it was important for us to have an opportunity to hear everyone's stories and have a chance to talk about it and listen. And then the other thing that we did was after we had the community conversations, we created a whole report. And like I said, in that report, we found out that the system is unavoidable. Everybody has to interface with the system one way or another. Like I said, if you're sending your kids to school, you have mandated reporters in the school. If you have to go to a clinic, you have to take your kids to the doctors. So you have mandated reporters in the doctors. You have mandated reporters when you go to HRA. You have mandated reporters in any and everything that you do. And a mandated reporter, as Dorothy described so eloquently in her book, is a deputized agent. So ACS workers are what we are calling deputized agents at this point. And they have the ability to just go in your house, search your cabinets, search your refrigerators, strip search your kids, and they can do all of this without a warrant or anything. The only thing they have to do is have a report made, or somebody call the ACS hotline. Go ahead.
Oh, or I was going to say, or a notice of existence.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. Take it away, Nachia, because I feel like I talk too much. Go ahead.
No. Just to add to what Halima is saying, that was some of the pretty stuff, I may say. But during the participatory action research project, to gather these parents, they did not trust us at first. They didn't. Once you hear ACS, once you hear child welfare or family policing, they were kind of shut off. So using the healing circle and the techniques that we learned from the Grief Collective, we had to gain the parents' trust in saying, listen, we're not ACS, we're impacted parents ourselves, and we had to gain their trust in answering the survey. So the survey, we intentionally formulated questions to, during the survey, can you guys hear me? No? During the survey, we had to intentionally create questions around people's experiences, because no one had ever asked them to wholeheartedly explain what it is that they're going through. It's always you have to do, as Dorothy explained, they come in telling you what you have to do or else. So during this participatory action research, we heard that the family policing system is unavoidable. We heard that there's long and lasting trauma. We've heard that people went from living full lives to now being on medication, now being diagnosed with mental illnesses, or just being medically diagnosed with something. What else did we hear? So we had to gain parents' trust during this surveying. We also went out into the community. Again, once parents heard that we were surveying around their experiences around ACS, some opened up, some were like, you know what, ACS don't want to deal, can't deal, it's too traumatizing. There were times when virtually we were holding the survey and it was too much for parents. And we had to go off of script, be in community, and just kind of debrief and not even go according to our agenda. So it was difficult, but it was also rewarded at the same time because parents also felt that this was the first time that they felt heard. This is the first time they felt believed. This is the first time that their story has gotten out. So we're hoping to continue that work.
Yes, we're hoping to continue that work with our current child care campaign. We have a campaign for universal child care happening right now. We are collaborating with an organization called Alliance for Quality Education, and we have been going out to rallies in support of universal child care. So we're calling on the governor, or we was calling on the governor, to allocate $5 billion for universal child care, because we know that when a person doesn't have access to child care, that's more than likely leading them into getting a negligence case, a case for child neglect or maltreatment or abuse, because they don't have the adequate child care services in place, because they may be working or they may be going to school, or any of those things can be happening and they don't have the child care necessary. So we're fighting to get child care for folks to have so that they don't risk getting family policing cases. Or getting involved in the family policing system. We also offer support groups and space for folks or for families to have a space to like vent their frustrations and talk about their experiences with the family policing system in a safe space, in a supportive environment with folks that have the experience and know and can relate to what people have experienced. So the other thing that we're doing is, wow, we're doing so much at Rise. We also just developed a child care survey where we're asking how folks access child care in New York State or New York City. And what we know is that most oftentimes people that are trying to access child care, they have to go through HRA, which is the Human Resources Administration, and that's a long, arduous, and tedious process, or they have to have an ACS case in order to get access to child care, and then they will get access to child care for up to 5 years. But that is ridiculous to have to be involved with the ACS or family policing system in order to get child care services so that you can work and or go to school or do anything to better yourself. So it's like, make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. And what else are we doing at Rise?
Did you talk about the peer parent, your report on peer parent advocates?
So I am not the expert on the peer and the parent advocates, because that is not my work. My work is the organizing work. But what I know about the peer or the peer advocate program is that we train advocates to learn how to deal and work with parents that are involved in the system, so that they have somebody that has experience and know how to navigate the system in order to get through the system and not have it up in their whole life. So we are training advocates in the system. So this is our work that we do within the system, because we at Rise also believe in the outside in approach as well as an outside out strategy. So the outside in is doing our organizing work and working with other organizations, collaborating with other organizations to dismantle the current child welfare or family policing system. And then we have the inside out strategy where we work with parent advocates, because we know that we have to work within the system right now because that's what's available. We can't just leave parents out there to just be used and abused and just traumatized. We can't do that. We don't believe in that at Rise, and we have the tools and the resources to give parents what they need, and so that's what we do with our peer advocate program. I said I didn't know about the peer advocate program. I clearly lied. I know all about the peer advocate program, y'all.
They also, the peer, Rise's peer model, they also train advocates on advocating for impacted parents, because it's one thing for advocates to be alongside of these impacted parents, and it's another thing for the parents to be alone. Because again, I'm an impacted parent, and what I know now I didn't know then. I didn't know. I didn't have to open my door for ACS until I came into Rise. But ACS does not tell you. It's open your door. If you don't, the next time we're coming in with the NYPD. And so people are opening their doors. And so with the peer advocates, they're training these parents on how to advocate for themselves and not to be manipulated by the family policing system.
So we are doing amazing work at Rise, and if you got some coins, you should throw them at us. I'm fundraising too, so I'm the fundraiser and the community coordinator, all wrapped up in one. No, but seriously, throw some coins at us so we can continue this amazing work.
And please support Revolution also.
And support Revolution Bookstore so that they can continue this awesome programming and continue to educate the public about what the issues are at hand that are that's keeping us as a people in crisis. We stay in crisis mode because there's always something coming at us to terrorize certain communities. And when I say certain communities, I'm talking explicitly about Black and brown communities. Like all of these systems that are out here, the healthcare system, the education system, the prison system, all of these, the family policing systems, all of these systems are meant to surveil, punish, and target Black and brown communities and put us all in crisis and just destroy us. It's like modern day genocide. And the communities that are most impacted, we know exactly what we need. But we don't have access to the resources, and we damn sure don't have access to the money to get to the resources. And then the other thing we're missing is the power necessary to get to the resources that we need. So we need a whole slew of things, and one of the ways that we're organizing power is through organizing, letting folks know. Like one of the things with organizing is raising consciousness or raising public awareness around what the issues are. If people don't know what the issues are, how are folks supposed to be activated and want to tear down or burn down the system? You got to know which systems need to be burnt down in order to burn them down. So we are here to inform you about the family policing system and its need to be burnt down or torn down and dismantled. Now she says she can't follow that, but I think she can. I know she can. Anything else you want to follow up with?
I want to make sure you have a chance to say whatever more you want to say.
Yeah, what Halima said. Like I said, I did not have this platform before coming into Rise because no one told me that my voice mattered. And so that's what we tried to do, let parents, inform them of their rights, inform them, because a lot of people, to be honest, even during the survey, a lot of people are still calling it the child welfare system. And we intentionally, there's a little disclaimer above our surveys that say we don't call it the child welfare system because there's nothing, it's family policing. And also the foster system, there's nothing foster about the foster care system. And so people just find Rise in even our circles, whether it's the peer program, whether it's the Rise and Shine program, whether it's being involved in our surveys, they just find our space, like a safe space, to tell their stories, tell their narratives, because otherwise it's flipped.
So what do you want to do next?
Burn it down, damn it!
Should we open it to?
There are two things I thought. I thought you were going to do a second reading.
Well, I do have another reading.
And then
Okay.
I had a few comments.
Okay. I can do that. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, well, the podium is up. Okay, never mind. I can sit right here and do my second reading. And thank you so much for those comments and letting us know about the work of RISE, which is so essential. I want to emphasize in what they were saying the point that the way this system operates is to blame, accuse, investigate, monitor, disrupt, dissemble, tear apart, destroy. That's how it operates. It doesn't operate in any way that actually provides some kind of welfare or services to people. And in fact, what they call services are forced mandated tasks that you have to fulfill. They call that service. There's so much Orwellian about this system. But also the fact that in order to get the resources, the material resources that families need, they have to give up custody of their children. What kind of sick, pathological approach is this to taking care of families and children, to truly caring, that you only get minimal help? It's not even adequate. It's piddly help if you allow us to take your children and put you under extreme surveillance with the threat that we might destroy your family altogether by terminating the rights of children and parents to even have a legal relationship. That is it's a oppressive very design of the system. The system, that's the way it operates. It's the only way it operates. It only operates by the threat of taking children away or removing them from the home. Otherwise, there's nothing to it. So that very design means that it cannot be fixed. You know, people recognize that there are flaws with this system. We hear about how the system failed to protect children who are harmed in their home, or we hear about how they took away children. Well, you don't hear about that as much, without any need. And we know there are flaws. We know about the harms. It's well documented that children who spend time in foster care are more likely to be unhoused, earn less, more likely to go to prison and juvenile detention. It pushes children into that. Not only does it do that, it kills children within these so-called residential therapeutic centers that are like prisons. Right. And I cite a number of cases where children have been killed. And so that harm, and then the harm to our entire society that says this is the way that America is going to deal with the needs of children. And you know, it blocks us from a radical change because there's so many people who have been fooled into thinking that this is some kind of panacea for the needs of children and for the deep inequities that exist in America. So I'm grateful that you all are doing this work and that you told us about the work you're doing, which is it's to dismantle but also to replace it with ways that truly support parents and other family caregivers and children. Both of those are important. Both of those are present and essential to RISE's work, which is so important. Okay, I'm gonna read a story from the book, and then I'll just read a little bit at the end of the book. Okay, and you all may have heard of this story, but here's a reminder about it. It was actually broadcast on Instagram Live, and then it got a fair amount of media attention, but it's so reflective of how this system operates that I think it's a good story to remind you of the harms and violence of the so-called child welfare system, the family policing system. In August 2021, Tyrone Denier, a black man with a beard and dreadlocks, broadcast an Instagram Live video showing armed deputies from the Manatee County Sheriff's Office detaining him, his partner Saisha Mercado, a former American Idol finalist, and their 10-day-old baby. The deputies had pulled the family's car over to the side of a highway to execute a family court judge's order to seize the couple's newborn daughter. The family's nightmare began in February of that year when Mercado and Denier took their 13-month-old son to a hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida, to seek medical care. And again, I just want to emphasize what Halima was saying about how all of these places are supposed to be caring places, schools, hospitals, medical clinics, social service offices. They've all been become deputized agents for this family policing system. So the very places that could be hubs for caring, where people could go for help or just to meet their needs, have been turned into these spaces of surveillance. And so you take the risk in many communities, you know, not the wealthy communities, they don't have to worry about it, but in the most oppressed communities, that's where every time you go to some place that is supposed to be helping, or just basic provision of basic needs like health care, right? Education, public education, you are risking someone calling the abuse hotline and someone coming to take your kids away. So this is what happened to this family. So they took their toddler to a hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida, to seek medical care. Pregnant at the time, Mercado was having trouble transitioning the toddler from breastfeeding to eating solid foods and was concerned that he was dehydrated. Hospital staff called the child maltreatment hotline to report the toddler was malnourished and failing to thrive. And the Department of Children and Families, DCF, took him from his parents. Because Mercado and Denier were under CPS supervision when their daughter was born 6 months later, DCF considered the newborn to be at risk. There's no need for evidence of harm. All you need is suspicion of risk, or you're labeled as risky. And by the way, that's increasingly done by big databases and digitized surveillance and algorithms that predict the risk. These agencies are hiring big corporations with multi-million-dollar contracts to collect data, massive amounts of data on families and people they associate with, and then use these algorithms that you don't even know what factors are in there, because that's their proprietary trademarked information, and using that to trigger investigations of families, just like police departments are doing, to find hot spots where they go in. Same thing with the family policing system. The couple had hired an attorney to advocate for the return of their son and was embroiled in court proceedings, which led to a judge's pickup order to the sheriff's office. The video Denier posted shows Mercado holding the infant wrapped in a pink blanket as she walks slowly from her car toward 3 white women who appeared to be CPS staff, as if she were a condemned convict walking to the gallows. Mercado pauses in front of the workers. "Do you not feel anything?" she asked the women desperately. "You guys, I'm human. This is my baby. My baby is days old, and you're taking my baby away from me. You're taking my baby away from me. You have no heart." As Mercado hands over her daughter, she pleads with the women once more. "My baby is healthy and happy. My baby is breastfeeding from me. What are you going to give my baby?" When the child begins to cry, Mercado grows more distraught. "You're traumatizing my baby. You have created so much trauma. I'm not a danger to my baby. It's so wrong. It's so wrong." Then she collapses into Denier's chest, weeping inconsolably. With the help of the viral video, a team of lawyers, and media attention, Mercado and Denier were reunited with their daughter 9 days later while they continued to fight to recover their son. And they did eventually get him back, but only with the attention and protest around it. I mean, imagine if she weren't an American Idol finalist. Imagine if Denier didn't take the Instagram Live video. This happens all the time to families, and they don't get their babies back.
Right.
They may never get the baby back. No harm to this baby. The terror inflicted by the armed officers who surrounded the peaceful family and the cruelty displayed by the CPS workers who tore the infant from her loving mother leave no doubt that the joint incursion, again, they work in teams, police officers and caseworkers. They're
Some
one and the
cops are
same.
caseworkers.
Exactly. Yeah, I saw Joyce McMillan walk in here. Some cops are caseworkers. Yes, and no doubt it was aimed at criminalizing the parents, not protecting their children. Okay, I'm just going to read a little bit from the end because I want to return us to the more hopeful, because there is hope, because there's a movement building now. You know, there's hope now. Okay, so this book has demonstrated that the child welfare system's surveillance, control, and destruction of black families is part of the same carceral regime as prisons and police. We should be on a common mission to bring down all the regime's damaging extensions and to create a common vision for meeting human needs, preventing violence, and caring for children, families, and communities. The unwillingness to confront the family policing system's racist terror reminds me of a common scene in an action-adventure movie. Okay, now you've seen lots of them, I'm sure. All right, you'll recognize this scene. The hero is dangling from a cracking cliff. He or she, but it's usually a he, has to decide whether to go and grab the hand of someone reaching down from a helicopter. Clinging to the crumbling rock means moving faster toward disaster. Only by releasing the grip on the cliff can the hero be brought to safety. We must stop clinging to a system that is propelling black children and their families to disaster out of fear of taking a fundamentally different path that would actually keep them safer. Instead, we can envision and build, as Rise and others are doing. I know, and Carl Dix too. He's gonna have the last word on this, I know. Okay, we can envision and build a world where tearing families apart to meet children's needs would be unimaginable. So I'll end there.
Okay.
You're going to wrap this up, right, before the Q&A? Is that
Well,
how
I'm going to put
Okay.
some in, and then maybe y'all
Okay,
have
okay,
some more say.
okay.
I'm not closing it off.
Okay,
I'm just
okay.
contributing.
Go on, please.
Okay, so I want to actually, is my mic on?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to come off of the points, well, Dorothy made them, Halima made them, Maisha made them. Everybody's making them, and it's done very well in the book that this family policing agency, institution, must be dismantled. You can't rely on incremental change to stop these horrors. How do you do that? And look, I meant to mention this earlier. I'm a co-founder of the October 22nd Coalition to Stop Police Brutality, Repression, and the Criminalization of a Generation. That was back in the 1990s. About a decade or so ago, I co-founded with Cornel West the Stop Mass Incarceration Network. So I have fought the horrors of this system most of my adult life, okay? And you gotta fight what they bring down on you, because if not, they'll beat us down until we're just broken, defeated people. And that is actually part of the aim. They actually, there are people that they have no future for, that they hate and fear, and they remember what happened in the 1960s when those people rose up. They do not want to see that again. So this is what we're dealing with. We're up against this. How do we dismantle systems that perpetrate these horrors on people? And to do it, it's really required to get rid of the whole capitalist imperialist system, not just some of its aspects which are fucked up, because they're all fucked up. I'm just getting loose. We're just going with, huh?
We'll keep you on Facebook.
Okay, I'm glad, because I might get more of that, more like that. We need a revolution. When I talk about revolution, I mean leading millions of people in rising up, overthrowing this system, breaking up its institutions of violent suppression, you know, which includes family policing. That's what I'm talking about. And bringing into being a totally different and far better system where exploitation and oppression is done away with once and for all, and people have a totally different way to live. This is what I'm talking about. See, now when I say this, you might be like, what is Carl up there smoking? But this ain't no pipe dream. It's not only necessary, it's possible. Look at the uprisings after the murder of George Floyd for the potential for this. Look at in various parts of the world where women rose up and fought to get the right to legal abortion, a right that is being taken away as we sit here and speak right now in this country. And there is a movement, Rise Up for Abortion Rights, that's fighting that I urge you to check out. But there's the potential for this. There's also leadership for it. In the revolutionary leader that I follow, Bob Avakian, he's not only the architect of a new framework of human emancipation, he's developed a strategy for leading and making a revolution in a country like this one, right here in the belly of the beast. He's authored a blueprint which has a vision of the kind of society that could be brought into being in the Constitution for a new socialist republic in North America, which is available here. He's also laid out the foundation for this revolution and a basic roadmap for carrying it out in a recent talk, Something Terrible or Something Truly Emancipating. And in this talk, he speaks to one other ingredient to the potential and possibility for revolution. And that is how this is a rare time when revolution becomes more possible. It's a time when the infighting at the top of the system between the fascists grouped around Donald Trump and the regular mainstream imperialists grouped around the Democrats, all of whom, they're fighting over how to keep this system in effect. What's the best way? Iron fist, velvet glove, combination of the two, but they're trying to keep the system in effect. And as they fight over that, it exposes the vulnerability of the system, and it opens up for people the fact that this system, the way it works, the way people are forced to live, is not necessarily the way it has to be. Because some of them are working on changing it in a terrible direction. And what we need are forces who are working to change it in a positive, emancipating direction. And that's what this movement for an actual revolution that Bob Avakian leads is out doing. Bringing to people that we don't have to live this way, that revolution is possible. What kind of society could be brought into being through that? We don't have a whole lot of time because these fascists are moving. And if they get their way, everybody's ass is in the sling. But things don't have to go their way, and we don't have to get up under the wing of the Democratic Party, because that's a party of piggery anyway. You know, when you look at, Dorothy even speaks to this in her book, in how a lot of this family policing thing developed under who?
Clinton.
There you go.
Bill Clinton signed
so it
the
ain't
bills.
like
Yeah.
they're our friends, and if we just stay away from Trump and his people, we okay. No, we have to break through on them, and there's a movement that's out there doing that. We're not talking about sitting around and doing nothing and waiting for a revolution. No, we have to fight their attacks. That's what I did in relation to mass incarceration, in relation to police terror, something that I'm still doing. But we have to fight it in ways not that are like, well, let's incrementally change this or that. We have to fight it in ways that expose the whole system in this and mobilizes people to understand and get into a fight to get rid of that system, showing them the possibilities for doing that, how to do it, how to go about that. That's something that this movement is doing, you know, right now. We want to partner up with people who are also fighting, and you can find out more about this movement for an actual revolution here at Revolution Books. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say on this point is I see some faces that have been in Revolution Books before, but I also see a lot of faces that maybe haven't. You know, don't make this your one and only time. Stay on with Revolution Books. You can come here for programs like this. You can come here for books like Dorothy's, but also many other books that lay out what the world is like, why it's like that, and how we can transform it into something possible. One thing that everybody should do is get on Revolution Books' email list. That way you can find out what's happening, you can find out new books that are coming out, programs that are being done here. You know, you might even find out what I'm doing, because I show up here every now and then. So I just wanted to put that in.
Thank you.
And it's up to y'all. Y'all can respond to that, pose questions around it, or you can open it up.
I just wanted to add that although there were elements of the revolution that was televised recently, the revolution will not be televised. So you cannot sit at home and watch it on TV. Like Gil Scott-Heron said, I was about to recite The Last Poets, but I ain't gonna do it to y'all. But the revolution will not be televised, and the best way to get involved is to get involved.
I know. That's good. I used to move to Q&A.
Yeah, we definitely
Yes.
want to open it up for
Yeah,
some
let's do
Q&A,
that.
So if anybody has any questions, I can go around. This one works better.
Can you hear me? There we go.
Oh, yeah, it's on. It's hot. It's hot.
Hey y'all.
Hey.
I just wanted to quickly thank Revolution Books. I wanted to thank Nashia and Halima for your beautiful insights and for the work that you're doing at Rise. I don't know many people across the country that are doing work in the way that you're doing it. So I'm really grateful for the fact that it's happening. Ms. Roberts, Dorothy, if I may, want to just thank you for your scholarship, because I felt like until now, people made the connection between, you know, because of the work of like Ava DuVernay,
Right.
and others, of the connection between mass incarceration and slavery in the system. But I don't think that people were making that connection as it related to the family policing system, and as it sort of related to carcerality. So thank you for that.
Sure.
I read an article that you did recently. I read the article recently. I don't know that it was recent. It was called "Welfare and the Problem with Black Citizenship."
Oh, that's an old article.
Yeah, and it was super.
thank you.
It shifted for me in that, like, and I promise I'm gonna bring this around.
It's all related. It's
Yeah,
all related.
it on a level, and I'll let you speak to it because I'm sure you can do a better job than me. But the point was that the issue was that we never were given full citizenship, and so we're treated differently. So you made the point that white families were being treated very differently. And so I wondered if you might make that connection, especially kind of as it relates to that particular article, how we're treated differently, and how so much of, I think, the ways that Black women and families are policed are directly related to identity and the fact that we hate Black women. And the ways that it, like, connects to the system of slavery and the ability to control our fertility and take our children away. So I just wanted to say a lot of things, but maybe thread it together.
Yeah, well, you did a good job of threading it together. You know, I could point out that I first became aware of the real horrors of the family policing system when I was working on my first book, Killing the Black Body, which is about the long-standing regulation and hatred and stigmatization of Black women's childbearing, and the way in which our mothering is devalued and has been devalued since the time of slavery, and all of the kinds of myths about, you know, disparaging myths about Black mothers, that we're licentious, that we don't really care about our children, that we don't have loving bonds with our children, we're incompetent to take care of our children. You know, those are stereotypes that began during the slavery era, and we can look consistently throughout U.S. history of how those stereotypes have been updated for the current political moment. And they fueled so many of the policies that we see today, like the ones under Clinton, for example. You know, the 1993 crime control bill that sent more police officers into black communities and helped to increase incarceration, to create mass incarceration. The abolition of the federal entitlement to welfare. That was based on the myth of the black welfare queen, who supposedly had babies just to get a welfare check. So that combined both the idea that we have too many babies, and by the way, that idea also supported mass sterilization of black women throughout the 20th century. And then it also then fueled this idea that black women were getting welfare checks and having babies just to get those checks, but then wasting it on their children. They didn't really care about their children. And then at the time I was working on Killing the Black Body, it was the myth of the pregnant crack addict who cared more about crack cocaine than her babies and was producing the so-called crack baby, who again was a black baby. You know, it's supposed to be that this only happens to black mothers and babies. Nobody else has these kinds of traits but black people, and black mothers in particular. So black mothers were supposed to be giving birth to the black crack baby, so-called, who was supposed to be really a monster, you know.
Super predator.
Super going to be predicted in major newspapers, and even so-called scientific studies say they're going to become super predators, they're going to become welfare-dependent criminals, they won't be able to learn anything in school. And there were doctors who were supporting these based on really shoddy research that, for example, they're taking, and this is how I learned about how massive family policing was. They were taking thousands and thousands of black newborns away from their mothers, and then they look at these children who have been affected by structural racism and poverty, who've been affected by being taken as newborn infants from their mothers, and they look at the results and say, oh, it's the mother's fault that they have these health problems, which, by the way, did not lead to all the predictions. So these stereotypes about black mothers have been used to support these oppressive policies of welfare restructuring, abolishing the federal entitlement to welfare in 1997, also signed by Bill Clinton, passed by a Democratic Congress, and then in 1997, the Adoption and Safe Families Act, right on the heels of it, passed by the same Democratic Congress, signed by the same Democratic president, and promoted also by Hillary Clinton, who loved this idea of so-called freeing black children from their mothers so they could be adopted. And then some people, like Elizabeth Bartholet, a Harvard law professor, saying that they would be better off in white homes explicitly, because then they would be able to learn about the privileges of power and some, you know, all of this is a bunch of, I won't curse, but baloney. Let's just say baloney. Okay, so yes, and these are all integrated together because when you have these cuts in the puny amounts that go to families, especially, you know, single moms to take care of their children, disproportionately black mothers, yes, because black mothers are disproportionately harmed by these structures in society that deny the needs of children. And so the dissolution of welfare turning into a behavior modification system, basically, the incarceration and the rates of incarceration of black women went up even, the rate increase, you know, was even more than for men. Of course, the numbers are smaller, but the multiplication of the numbers, right, is the most for black mothers. And then you bring in also family policing. They all work hand in hand. And this is the way our racial, capitalist, neoliberal society operates. It denies the needs of people, then it blames them for not being able to survive or to struggle. And the solution is take their children away, put them in prison, and then circulate these myths about black mothers to make it seem like this is just good for black children. You know, this is just follows from the innate depravities of black mothers. It all, I mean, yeah, I could go on, but it all works together. It all works together. And yes, those 3 laws passed in under the Clinton administration are a perfect example of it. While you're going to the next question, I'll just add also in this history, you know, black children were excluded from the formal child welfare system for decades until the civil rights movement that Carl was saying they don't want us to do again. They don't want those uprisings again. And it was the adding black children into the family policing system was part of a backlash against civil rights struggle. It was a backlash against freedom struggles to, as black children were entering the welfare system and getting welfare benefits, then is when they began taking massive amounts of children away, and foster care became the major so-called service for families, all based on the increase in black children coming into the system. The system, whether we're talking about welfare, prisons, or family policing, it all became more oppressive and violent as black people became part of these systems. And so again, they all tie together historically, ideologically, and in terms of the communities. It's the same communities that are being assaulted, the exact same communities.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you all for the work that you're doing. Dorothy Roberts, thank you for your research. If you all have not read Killing the Black Body, you have to. You just lay out such a phenomenal history, past, present, and future understanding. Halima, is it Mashima? Nashia. Thank you so much for providing intervention for women, for black women, women of color, and especially children. So I wanted to know, how do you provide safe spaces and teach the children about advocacy?
So we're hoping that the children will learn from their parents, because we're planting the seeds in the parents. There aren't very many children that have participated in our activities, but like, I am a parent myself, and I'm one of those parents that makes all spaces advocacy spaces. So I bring my children to all spaces and make those spaces a space of learning. And so I like to encourage other parents to do the same thing, because I believe that as parents, if your children are not invited, you're not invited. So we need to invite children to more spaces, because again, the children are our future. And it's like, as long as we're planting the seeds in the parents, who's watering the parents if we're not teaching the children too, so that they can water the seeds that we plant in the parents too. So like I said, I encourage the children to come along and parents to bring their children, because you know, if I can't bring my children, I'm not going.
And Rise will be having a lot of parent day events, so we can gather
Yes,
families
yes.
and children and again bring that connection back together. Build
Yes.
our community.
Yes, we have a family day scheduled for May 28th. So look out for the flyer. Follow us on social media. Read Rise Magazine. That is our social media handle.
Rise Mag.
Read Rise Mag. I'm old. I don't do social media the same. I'm still on Facebook, y'all. Like, I'm old. And I enjoy Facebook. I'm gonna say it out loud.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I feel so nervous. So my name is Darlene Jackson. So I'm a client advocate at the Neighborhood Defensive Service of Harlem, which is like a few blocks down. Yeah. But it's so funny that you asked that question, because about the young people, because I was a young person who I was an adolescent who grew up in the foster system. I don't want to say foster care, foster system. I'm learning really to educate myself how. Changing the language of how to really identify these punitive systems that impacts families that looks like mine. But I was excited to see the point that Ms. Roberts made on the book on page 11 at the very beginning, where they said, youth who were formerly in foster care are increasingly leading and participating in the efforts to end family policing, coupled with the rise of the parent groups, and family defense. So, everything that so far has been out. I'm only in page. I'm getting through the book, but this is probably the first book that I have really self-identified with, and I'm so. Because the stuff that Ms. Roberts has outlined in the book, I was like, oh my God, this is what I see every day. Like, how the hell does she? It's like to detail. I'm like, does she work at a public defense organization? I was
I know folks. In fact, neighborhood services in Harlem. I know people there. I talk to people there. I had a session talking with them. Also, Brooklyn and Bronx family defenders, community legal services in Philadelphia. Yes, and then Rise and Joyce McMillan back there.
Yes.
Yeah, you gotta stay connected and work. But thank you. Keep going. I didn't mean to. You kind of asked a question, so I jumped in. But go on.
Everything that was outlined in the book, I was like, oh my God, thank God this is being documented, because I feel like we working it's so invisible. I know there's a lot of movement around dismantling the criminal, the criminal legal system. But I feel like this is what kind of feeds our, mass incarceration, and like Ms. Roberts has said, a lot of the parents that come in contact with the family policing system, for abuse is mostly generational, untreated trauma, and for the neglect is it's all poverty-related issues. But my specific question, sorry, I had to give a little backstory, because you guys talk about how are we going to transform. How are we going to transform this racist system, right? It's not. I'm beyond reform. Reform is what actually got us here, and so I feel, I think a lot of it has to do, and I think you talk about this a little bit, Ms. Roberts, is we got to be very careful about who we are allocating funding to, because a lot of the nonprofit organizations perpetuate the cycle of oppression. And so what I'm noticing is that, ACS is paying attention. They're like, oh, but they see that there's a movement of parents that's now, using their voices and experience to try to challenge public policy. But I feel like they now are trying to, because I'm seeing funding is being allocated to community-based organizations.
That have a contract with them.
Yeah, but now,
Come on,
there's some that
let's be honest.
Yeah, so I saw an article recently, just not even less than a month ago, where they allocating funding to 9 to 10 nonprofit organizations, and when I looked them up, 2 of them was actually foster care agencies, but the rest of them was actually CBOs, and I actually called one that was down the block from where I live at in the Bronx, in Soundview, and spoke to the ED listen, I see that you guys was listed on this list. What ACS is, you got to be reading the fine print in these contracts, because you don't want to, you have a reputation to be on the front lines of, dealing with the community, but now you're being contracted by a punitive system that's oppressing the same families that you're trying to service. So that's one aspect. Another thing that I really want to emphasize, I know this is is that there's a lot of talk about, women of color, right? And so when a lot of people who work at ACS are women of color. A lot of people who work in law enforcement, the NYPD, and inside schools, inside jails, and our prisons are all women of color. And so when we go to city council and tell them we need to divest or defund from this bloated police budget that just continues to surveillance and a punitive system, they're hesitant because the majority of people who work in these jobs are women of color. And so I think that when we talk about divesting and investing in communities, it has to be in the jobs that we actually need, and is not stop using black people to try to recruit them into the workforce, these economic opportunities that all they doing is actually oppressing their own people. Because every day, I'm not even gonna lie, every day I'm ready to fight a CPS worker. I'm about to get locked up today. Today I'm going to Rikers Island. But I'm like, why? This is the first time I've ever been in a job where I actually want to cause physical harm to somebody else who looks like me. And I'm like, this is what the system is actually doing, is it's mind-boggling. I'm just so thankful that you wrote this book, and I feel like this is a call to action that is very well documented, and I feel like I'm just happy to be in this space, and I'm just gonna pass the mic because I'm talking too much.
Thank you, darling.
Any comments, panelists?
No, I just said thanks, Darlene.
Thank you. Yeah. I would just say, remember, it's structured to oppress. It's structured to harm. It's structured to destroy. So if you work in it, it doesn't matter what your good intentions are. You're going to be shaped by it. And, you know, I think we need to have more discussions about what you're raising. About, you know, just because you look a certain way, if you're in that system, you may have the best of intentions, but you're going to be governed by the principles and the values and the objectives of that system. And, you know, we just have to remember that. So I appreciate what you said. I really do.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mensa. This has been a riveting conversation, and thank you for the panel. Love it. Actually, addressing what you just brought up, there's a book that talks about this, about the tactics that colonizers use to go into communities that are being targeted and recruit people to use them against their own communities. And the book is called Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo. Yeah, right there. Yes.
I know it's on the shelf.
My friends from
Yeah, it's a great book, and he talks about it. And he was locked up in prison for like 30 years or something in Brazil. Yeah, and he also has another book called Pedagogy of, I think the Free. I'm not sure. I don't have that one. I have that one. But yeah, that's a great book. Okay, that's it.
So that comes to the back somewhere. Let's get the back one, then we'll come back to the middle.
Hi, how are you? My name is Monique Menes. I think what you guys are doing really awesome because there are some people who are not even aware that they're being oppressed by this, and I'm gonna confess. So I thought it was like a preventive type of service. I recently moved to Jersey, and I called DIFUS on my kids. Yes. I said, I need a break. I'm gonna hurt this kid. Can you come and get him? And they said, ma'am, you have to call the police. I said, he'll be dead. That's not gonna work, you know. And these things are not preventive, you know. I recently started my own organization. Oh, sorry, I think I'm losing. Called Black Communities Work. And what I realized is that a lot of times when we are in a revolution, because every day I wake up, I'm in a revolution. You know, James Baldwin said to be conscious and black in America is to be in a rage all the time. And I find that because I'm trying to advocate for so many people, I have to realize that I have to advocate for myself. Children are very, very, very vulnerable. I also found out that I too am an agent for ACS, and I had to change that because I was not making any change. So please keep doing what you guys are doing, and I need all of you guys' information on RISE. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, Monique.
Sorry?
Yeah, she's from Hunts Point.
Yeah, my name is Jeremiah. I would like to thank you, everybody. I'm also one of a revolutionary. I'm actually from Africa, a country called Namibia. And I've been living here in this community for a while, and I feel the pain that you're really talking. I've seen it myself. It's not something that I'm only hearing it or reading it from books. I can see a lot of even black women, they raise their children with no fathers. So it's, and when I look into that, I went into the system. I went and I can see 94 on somewhere back, there was a system that was introduced for that to happen, and more about that. So we all have the same problem. Even back where I'm coming from, the same country, we are not running our government. All our government, all of our leaders are just what we call rubber stamps. They are, the whole government system are controlled by a certain group of people. So this group, individuals, some are here in the same country, some are anti-apartheid system. These are all people that does this. The way I'm seeing it is the one those sort of individual that is killing and doing all of these problems are all one people. So keep up the revolution, and we also have we are also I'm not here only for no reason. We are here to seek help and be able to fight against these people. So these are actually the monopoly. Stop focusing on too much on what you call racial discrimination among you. You are a diverse society. Stand up and fight against monopoly. Whoever is printing the dollar is the one that is creating a problem against you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Angeline Montalban, and I would like to start by saying that Revolutionary Bookstore is my home. I've been coming here since 2014. All of the people here, Kevin, Ruby, Ray, those are my family. And I was also affected by the child welfare system, right? I would like to say thank you, Dorothy, for showcasing my story in your book, for talking about the criminalization of black families and everything that black families have to go through in the system, right? You guys made really good points. You made a good point about the nonprofit industrial complex. You have all of these nonprofits, right? Working together with the system to destroy families. And Carl, I don't know if you know, your wife actually went to federal court with me. And I know she told, yes, she actually went to federal court with me because I asked her, I was trying to educate her about the family policing system. So I'm not going to take too much of your time here, but I'm going to talk about that the system have over billions of dollars, right? And the solution is to divest that money and invest it into families. And that should not be hard to do. They're telling us it takes 10 years to close Rikers Island. It should not take 10 years to help families with housing, childcare, help with utilities, and anti-poverty relief. These are things that we could do right away. So while my son was in foster care, and I also would like to point out, these foster care agencies are around us. The foster care agency where my son was placed is 137th Street, not too far from here. These service providers are all around us, right? Social workers, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, all of these poverty pimps, right? They give millions of dollars of contracts to terrorize families, to traumatize families. You're going in there to see these people for trauma, but instead they're traumatizing you and to keep children and their families in foster care. So I started working and being with this bookstore and the Revolutionary Communists in 2014. And I became a revolutionary because revolution, like Carl Dick says, is the answer, right? Not all these other reform. And Dorothy Roberts wrote her book, Shattered Bonds. I don't know if we have a copy of it here. She talked about reform, right? And I told Dorothy Roberts, you said everything there is to say about the child welfare system in Shattered Bond, right? Why are you writing a second book? Abolition is the message today, not reform. The system cannot be reformed. It must be destroyed, right? So I'm here to thank this bookstore because I was just like everybody else. Grew up in a middle-class family, thought the system was there, the education system, the child welfare system was there to help and support families. And I learned like everybody else, okay? Because this is genocide, whether we want to talk about it or not. It is genocide whether you work for these nonprofits, right, that are here to destroy families. And you made a great point about Hillary Clinton. I remember when she was debating Donald Trump, right? And she had to talk about all the great work she was doing the communities. And she mentioned her work with children and their family. She brought up ASFA. I'm like, what? She brought up ASFA. I signed into bill that's gonna help children in the system. And I wanna say, when we think about the public school system, right? The destruction of public school. Harlem is surrounded by charter schools. This was a Democratic agenda, okay? The Democrats are not our friends, okay? And all of these money that they give, because that's the new trend now. They're giving monies to communities. They're hiring community organizers, giving them $100,000, $150,000 salaries. I'm like, wow, they're investing in us now? But it's the design, right? They are screaming for survival. It's like an animal, right? Trying to have another sort of reinvention. So abolition is the way, abolition is the future, and revolution is the answer.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments? We have time for maybe 2 more. Miss Catherine.
I'm not going to be long. Okay. My name is Catherine Cherry, and I have an organization, 501c3, called Del Gracia Corp. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Catherine Cherry. I'm the founder of Del Gracia Corp. This is my daughter, who's the co-founder. I'm not going to be long. I do want to ask you guys a question. As a 501c3 that is also, quote unquote, a preventive agency, I work closely with RISE. I'm not going to tell my age, but I'm a product. My family is a product of the foster care system. So my question to you all is that you talk about dismantling the foster care system. Could you talk to the audience or those who don't know about how are you using policies to dismantle? Because agencies like myself that are grassroots organizations a lot of us have decided not to take government contracts, to hold on to what we do have. So please talk about how are you using policies to reinvest into our communities. And I don't think a lot of us know that.
Thank you. Halima?
So one of the ways that we're working around policy is RISE has hired a policy coordinator who works on our policy issues and helping us draft policy around what policies we need to draft to change the system or burn the system down from the outside in, and work to burn the system down from the inside out as well. That's how we're working with it with our policy coordinator. And so I think it would be wise to probably hire somebody that's well versed in policy to help you with policy or drafting legislation or working around legislation or working with or collaborating with lawyers that could also help you with policy drafting and things of that nature. I hope that answered your question. And
we have been in the past and coming up in the near future, we're also meeting with elected officials as well, along with our policy coordinator, to speak about the policies that are in place now that shouldn't be. And also in our participatory action research project, we laid out some recommendations that speak to divesting and investing in just such as parent-led organizations such as ourselves, and putting monies back into the communities, because we as impacted parents and parents alone, they know what they want, right? So we speak a lot about that in our recommendations.
Yes, and we oppose a lot of policies that are not supportive of families. Joyce, you want to say something about policy?
Yeah.
Just put you on the spot. Tell them, Joyce is our legislation.
Oh, my name is Joyce McMillan.
Hey,
and
Joyce.
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Professor Roberts. I never say Dorothy. I have to put respect on her name. Halima and Rise for hosting this. But I just wanted to answer that question a little more directly and concretely. I'm working on 3 major policies in New York right now. And the first one is Miranda rights for families involved in the family regulation system. So when ACS knocks on your door, you would be Mirandized, advised that based on the 4th Amendment constitutional rights, 1, you don't have to let them in, and everything else that falls behind that. You have the right to an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you, so forth and so on. And that is a piece of legislation that is actually going to be voted on in the Assembly and the Senate within probably the next few weeks, hoping that it will pass. Senator Bridgeport is the sponsor of that bill. Advocacy on the treaty on the Assembly side. The next one is informed consent, which is much like Miranda, but specifically in a hospital setting, because what they do is they search the bodily fluids of black and brown women and poor women during the prenatal stages and postpartum for the sole purpose of reporting them to the family policing system, which cannot help them with a concern of substance use if there is a real concern, because there is a difference between substance use and substance abuse. And the last one that we are working on is anti-harassment, which means you will not be able to call and report a family if you do not leave your contact information. And the reason why that bill is so important is because the large majority, a very small percentage of calls made to report families by someone who is not a mandated reporter or people who are disgruntled with the family, because our community is well aware of who ACS is. With that being said, if I'm calling on you, I already know they're not going to give you help, right? Because I've never seen a person in a burning building trying to get out and have the fire department come and they run in a closet. But people hide when ACS comes. So that tells you that they're not providing help. Help is not help if it doesn't help. So you would have to leave your name and your contact information and be verified in order to make a report on somebody, and hopefully that would cut down on the reports that's made because somebody doesn't like you.
Joyce. Thank you, Joyce. Yes, and we want everyone to support all of those bills, so you can reach out to JMAC for families and get Joyce McMillan and support those bills as we continue. Another question?
Oh, well, not a question, but a statement. I don't intend to make any intend to put down or disvalue any of the points made by any of you wonderful people today. I'm sure, as Carl has suggested, even though I am 100%, on board with all the efforts of, all the efforts of Rise and everyone associated with them, I must say, don't think that putting the right black person in the system is going to do much, because whoever gets put into the system, either they end up becoming beholden to it, or the right people are broken by it. So what we really need is an actual revolution to overthrow this system of capitalism, imperialism, to get rid of this system, so that way we can actually provide the child care services that we need to children around this country, especially black children. If you are interested in organizing for revolution, making a real revolution in this country, I am a member of the Revolution Club. We also have another Revolution Club member outside. His name is Tatu. You can talk to either one of us to see how you can get organized for an actual revolution in this country, how we can make a real revolution in this country. Let's get together and overthrow this system.
So Thank you guys, everyone, so much for your time and your energy. Again, Rise is here to build relationships with everyone, so please reach out and get connected. Please, there's donation cards in the front so that you can support Revolution, and we really hope you support and buy Dorothy's book. We will have a little wine toast celebration outside to say thank you for Dorothy for joining us and celebrating her accomplishments. So if you can stay, you're welcome. We also have water for those that do not drink. So we just wanted to do a little toast and end our day like that. But again, thank you, Revolution. Thank you, everyone here for coming today. And thank you, everyone online for supporting us also. We appreciate you all. Thank you.